Wagwan fam, it's your boy Jack Slack, Fights Gone By podcast, coming at you on Tuesday rather than Monday, because I wanted to catch up on some more one fights, because people asked me my opinion. Well, no, more rightly, people were tagging me and shit, being like, can't wait to hear Jack blow a gasket over this one. For a packed weekend of fights, I'm kind of like not brimming with amazing shit to talk about, but there's some good stuff, and we'll do some news first. Not really many matchups announced this week. Thiago Alves versus Tim Means is set for December in Washington. Not a bad fight. You got Tim Means, who's long for the weight class and likes his elbows, against Thiago Alves, who likes counter combinations and walking up into body kicks and things like that. Alves getting a little bit more fragile with his age, to be honest. And just recently dropped out of that fight with Gunnar Nelson, which we actually got a better fight out of with Gilbert Burns. Actually, Burns just booked a no-gi match with Edwin Najmi. Not huge news, just interesting. Especially with things like Gary Tonin, where a lot of these guys are like, I'm going to MMA now for the money, and then they sort of are more moving back towards grappling now and doing it on the side as well. Whereas a lot of full-time MMA fighters have also been picking up super fights and grappling. What else is happening? I mean, Errol Spence was in a nasty, nasty car crash, flipped his car. If you've seen the photos of the wreck, did not look good. I believe is stable now, but is still being held in the hospital. Pretty surreal because, you know, he was only fighting Sean Porter just the other day. Actually, boxing news at the moment is pretty surreal anyway. Tyrone Spong. You know, I've been trying to keep an eye on Tyrone Spong because everyone's gone quiet about him, or had, for quite a while. Like, a few months ago, I tweeted out, like, did you know that Tyrone Spong is number 10 ranked in the WBC heavyweight rankings? And then almost immediately after that, he got the fight with Usyk, I can never say his name, who was coming up from cruiserweight to heavyweight and was the WBC's automatic number one contender. So Tyrone Spong, you know, we'd all considered his career pretty much done, and he just sort of like, a lot of MMA fans and kickboxing fans seem to think he's retired, but he's been working away in boxing, and he worked himself into the biggest fight of his life. Monetarily and also, you know, career prospect wise, and then comes out the week of the fight that he's failed for, what was it, Clomid? Or Clomiphene? I forget what it is, but not good. And he blows the biggest fight of his life. And then the same week he got in trouble for owning I think it's a cougar he owns as like a pet. Just the impression he got from it was like, has he been spending the money from the Usyk fight without actually getting to the fight yet? And then, you know, let's top it off with some bizarre MMA news from the fucking regionals. Brave CF, which I assume stands for Brave Championship Fighting, but they've just announced their openweight tournament. And, you know, everyone, there is like that class of nerd who's like, I do miss openweight tournaments, blah, blah, blah. And then you realise, oh wait, the level of skill was not high back then. Actual openweight tournaments tend to be bad. And, Super Hulk tournament. But the lineup for this tournament is incredible. You know, you got Alexander Emelianenko and Cole Miller in the same tournament. So that's Alexander Emelianenko, who's 6'8" and a big dude, and Cole Miller, who was gearing up for a fight with Conor McGregor when Conor McGregor was coming up through the UFC. How do you go from that, you know, missing out on the payday with Conor McGregor, to having to fight in an open weight tournament in an organisation that no one watches or has heard of? And Rashad Coulter has just been cut by the UFC, but he's jumped in this tournament. One of the favourites to win, I'd say, probably. But, you know, I pointed out that, oh, great, you got noted sex pest, went to jail for, well, he was accused of rape and kidnapping and various other stuff, but they bartered it down so that he didn't get done for the rape, I believe, and just had like 5 years in jail for holding a woman against her will, but having consensual sex with her. And also, obviously, not allowed to fight on US soil because he came over for one of the Affliction events to fight on the card with Fedor. I think he was due to fight Paulo Buentello. Clearly he feared not Paulo Buentello, but the consequences of that fight would be that if both of them bled, Paulo Buentello would have ended up with hep. Because turned out in his blood work that he had hepatitis. Shit, what's the chronic one? Actually, no, I think he had the curable one. But anyway, he's never been blood tested for a fight again, basically. He fights in, like, Russia where no one gives a shit. And he's just a nasty, nasty piece of work. Like, even Fedor doesn't talk to him anymore. And that was always the thing. Fedor was like, he could be the best if he ever just committed himself to training like I do. And there are still people waiting for Alex Emelianenko to be the best. But someone jumped in here on the thread and pointed out that not only does it contain Alex Emelianenko, sex pest, and Gilbert Yvel, the dirtiest fighter in MMA and kickboxing history, it also contains Josh Copeland, who's been charged with domestic abuse, and then 2 featherweights, 2 welterweights, and disgraced drug cheats Emir Ali Akbari and Guto Innocente. So a solid field. That is the memeiest tournament that's going to go down in MMA for a while. It's been a while since we had one, but it's on. So let's talk about some of these fights that went down at the weekend. We'll do the UFC because I watched most of that, and I watched bits and pieces of other stuff. I'm probably going to watch some more in the week, but I thought, fucking hell, better get this podcast out. UFC on ESPN was Waterson versus Joanna, and after all that, furore in the week with Joanna basically saying she wasn't going to make weight, they went through with it. She made weight, no problems. No idea what was going on there. And we got to the event with, I don't think any of the fights being called off, so that's good. So what was good on this card? We'll go from the bottom to the top. JJ Aldrich versus Lauren Mueller. JJ Aldrich, good hands for a lass. You know, a lot of them don't have the pop, but she's got the pop, and I enjoyed that. Got a big old forehead, like the kind of Cro-Magnon man. One of those like Neanderthal forehead ridges that looks like if you punched it, you'd break your hands. And I think Lauren Mueller probably did. But, not a bad scrap to get things started. I like Aldrich. I think got potential, but needs a little bit more than just spamming 1-2s. Do what Marvin Vettori did in the next fight. Beautiful segue, Jack. And just spam everything. Because he came out for the first round of this one, and Andrew Sanchez was just covering up. And I was watching Vettori punch his guard as hard as he could. And obviously you can't keep taking that because by the end of the fight, Sanchez was pretty bruised up. But equally, Vettori, if you compare him to Izzy, who he fought, his shot selection is really bad. He just, his whole thing is I've got crisp technique and good speed and good power, and I'm going to just throw them at you and you're not going to throw anything back. A bit of a bull rather than a matador? No, I don't know. Rather than a dangerous but more graceful creature. Miguel Baeza versus Aldana was really boring. What was that about? The first round, nothing happened. Second round, nothing happened. And then he kicked him in the calf twice. And Aldana fell down and he finished him with elbows, I think. Then you had the fight that I was looking forward to most. Actually, this and the next one. I forgot to even talk about Devison Figueiredo versus Tim Elliott. This is what happens. They put this stuff down on the undercard or in the middle of the card and you just miss it. But Marlon Vera versus Andre Ewell. Marlon Vera, we talked about him before. I said I think there's a conspiracy to bury the hype around Marlon Vera. It just doesn't make sense otherwise. Since he lost to Douglas D'Andrade back in February of last year, he's just been unbeaten and finished everyone. And he added another one to his streak, and it was a pretty good one. Andre Ewell, decent fighter by all means, but at this point we've got to give Vera a top 10 opponent because you can't put together a streak like this and just keep going. You don't want a Neil Magny streak of 8 dudes who don't matter. Though Frankie Sainz is good. But I thought Vera looked fantastic in this. He was cutting the ring well and kicking the body when he got to the cage, which is just everything you ever want to see from an offensive striker. Beautiful front snap kicks to the body, round kicks to the body shots with his hands. And when Ewell stepped in, he kept trying to slip the punch and come up on the head and arm clinch, which is a thing in Muay Thai. You step in on the head and arm clinch and you land some knees to the same side, because if you got a good head and arm and their elbows inside of that loop created with your hands and shoulders, their elbow is away from their body, so you can slam some knees into their ribs. But he was doing it and trying to pull guard on or even throw into a head and arm choke, which was awesome because he almost got it in the first attempt, and then he tried it again later, channeling the spirit of the other Marlon Sandro, who we don't talk about anymore, because when he was Jose Aldo's crying cornerman from that meme, I was like, hey mate, that's Marlon Sandro. Let's not forget he was pretty bloody incredible back in the day. He was number 2 in the world, while Aldo was number 1 at one point. And then people were like, yeah, and then he tried to murder his girlfriend. What? And then I checked it and he did. So we don't talk about Marlon Sandro anymore. That standing arm triangle, even though Sandro finished 2 fights with it and Marlon Vera has finished none, it is now the Marlon Vera standing arm triangle. By the end of it, Ewell was exhausted. Every body shot he took, he was crunching down into it. and then finally fell over and got finished. Let's play Hypothetical Matchmaker, because I like doing that. I don't do it enough, really. I thought I'd do like a series of articles after fights about it, but I've never really committed to it. But last week I was talking about Dan Hooker, possible matchups. I said Paul Felder and Islam Makhachev are interesting ones, and both of those guys immediately called him out, because they're avid readers and listeners, I assume. Very big in Dagestan, with the resistance of people who think that purging gay people is wrong. So where are we at? The bantamweight top 15. Thomas Almeida. Oh, that's a good fight. I'm already sold. Thomas Almeida, he's been disappeared for a while. Where is he? I don't remember who he's supposed to be fighting next, but yeah, I mean, what more could you want? Two aggressive guys trying to bang it out on the feet. Uriah Faber, assuming he's sort of just placeholding in these rankings because he's basically back in retirement now. I mean, Ricky Simon, he's not ranked anymore, but a good fight for Vera nonetheless. Song Yadong is already booked against Cody Stamann. I think that's next week. John Dodson, I just don't want to see him against anyone, to be honest. But then, you got the ring cutter versus the guy who likes circling the cage and running out to one side or the other. So at least a test for Marlon Vera on the feet. Rob Font, another great striker that you can put him against. Cody Stamann, a bit more of a wrestler. Cody Garbrandt, less said about him the better. Dominic Cruz, who's just ranked because they desperately want to push him into title contention whenever he actually gets healthy to fight again. How is Dominic Cruz joint number 7 on these rankings? Fucking hell. It's been like 3 years since he competed. Jimmy Rivera, that's a difficult one actually, because Jimmy Rivera has good movement and good striking. I mean, he's hittable because he gets dropped he gets dropped in almost every... It's like Eddie Alvarez, where he gets dropped and then he gets better in the course of the same fight. Pedro Munoz, I like the Munoz fight because Munoz is a big, strong, powerful guy, but very slow. But, Vera probably wouldn't be able to back him up and pressure him without risking eating some big overhands or just getting taken down. Asuncao is just death for everyone, so we don't put him in against anyone. And then, top end, you're talking like, no reason for Chito Vera to get involved with Peter Yan or Corey Sandhagen or these guys who are just, on the cusp of a title shot. But there's no reason that you couldn't put Chito Vera in with like Rob Font, who's number 11, or actually fuck it, have Cody Garbrandt bounce back against Chito Vera, because we know that Garbrandt is knockoutable now, and Vera is dangerous, but I'm sure Cody Garbrandt, if he cracks him right, can knock him out. If you don't know who Chito Vera is and you don't watch these like undercard fights, you won't give a shit about the last 3 minutes of conversation, but I'm saying you should watch Chito Vera because he's good fun. Devison Figueiredo versus Tim Elliott. This was like kind of not what anyone really was expecting, because Tim Elliott is just weird and awkward, and then suddenly jumped into a guillotine and got finished, having gone 5 rounds trading guillotine attempts with Demetrius Johnson. Very strange, but power to Devison Figueiredo. Just an absolute killer in a division where there isn't much finishing going on. Moreno versus Griffin was good. Griffin took some fucking bombs in the second round, and then came back and won the third round. Did at least very well in the third round. So props to him. Mike Davis versus Thomas Gifford. This one was pretty controversial because even the commentators were like, "This guy's corner should be stopping this now." I mean, I watched Gifford's last fight, and I thought, they were saying he was a former boxer, and I thought they were talking about the guy he was fighting because the guy he was fighting was making him look terrible. Roosevelt Roberts, that's the one. Yeah, guy's stand-up was not good. Tough as nails, you can't argue with that, but I think Bisping was right. At a certain point, either the referee or the corner has a responsibility to say, nah, stop it. And if you look at Gifford's record, hold on, he's literally never finished a fight past the second round. And they were sending him out there for the third round, you might submit him. All his finishes are first round. He's got 1 second round finish. What were you expecting? He's got 2 knockouts on his record too. Just stupid cornering, to be honest. At a certain point, just go, okay, we've lost this one. I would rather have the brain cells and get better than just take a horrible beating for no reason and then get face planted because there was how long was left in the fight? 15 seconds, and he got properly knocked out. And that there demonstrates just how stupid it was to let him keep going out there. He's getting beaten up, and you're going, well, let him work his way through it. Show his toughness, and then you get him properly starched, face down. And, every time that happens, it gets easier to do again. So, yeah, stupid decisions all round. But power to Mike Davis, he looked great. I just sort of got lost in if you look that good and that much better than the opponent, it gets lost because we expect the corner to do something sensible. Ryan Spann versus Devin Clark was garbage because, light heavyweights. Eric Anders versus Gerald Meerschaert was alright. I can't really remember much of that. Matt Favola versus Luis Pena was a bit of a surprise. Rebus versus Mackenzie Dern. I mean, that wasn't that much of a surprise, but it was decent. Let's get into the top tier stuff here. Nico Price versus James Vick. Jesus Christ, James Vick. When he gets knocked out, it really is just like someone's knocked the cord out of the wall by accident. All the power leaves and he just folds. Up kick from standing in guard, because it's really dangerous, and guys forget about it. It's crazy. You're on your knees, he can't up kick you, and then you go to stand up and you get up kicked. Pretty bizarre. But yeah, Nico Price, just weird. Just a weird fighter who keeps knocking people out from weird positions. Very strange that, James Vick's working with Lloyd Irvin, and, Lloyd Irvin is pretty scummy. He does train my boy Sadiq Youssef, but he is scummy as fuck. But he is a very, very good jiu-jitsu coach. Guys like Ryan Hall and Keenan Cornelius and people came through his gym because he was very good at training for jiu-jitsu and specializing in, or just drilling shit over and over again and really hammering at home important stuff. And James Vick just stands up in the guard with no regard for his own safety. Truly strange. And on the subject of up kicks, actually, that takes us on to our co-main event, which is Cub Swanson versus Kron Gracie. Cub breaks his 4-fight losing streak. Ooh! And Kron Gracie's winning streak of 5. Undefeated Kron Gracie. Just to be clear from the start, this is better than, this and everything that Kron Gracie did before this is better than anything Hickson ever did. Just in case you're like, oh, he's still living in the shadow of his dad. Only two nostalgic idiots who buy into wushu. Kron Gracie walking down Cub Swanson for 5 rounds is more impressive than any bin man that Hickson Gracie ever fought. But yeah, Cub, this was on a lower level what you should be looking for from someone who's going to beat like Khabib or Usman or someone like that. Use the footwork, stay off the fence, make sure that if they shoot at you on the fence, you're at a disadvantage because they're on the fence. You can keep getting back up, but if it's one of those guys like Khabib or Usman, doesn't matter, they're just going to keep taking you back down. Staying away from the fence means that if they shoot on you, they're going to be shooting out into the open, and you've got more time and space and stuff to sprawl or dig underhooks or do whatever you're going to do. You've got room to defend without being up against the wall. And movement means that if you keep moving, you're giving someone bad shots, which is what you want. You want them to follow you around going, oh, do I take that shot? And if they do take that shot, you want it to be pretty garbage. So that's the whole point of circling the cage. Now, was Cub Swanson's footwork as amazing as it was made out to be? Probably not. He was just sort of circling in one direction. If you want to watch really good ring circling, someone like Eddie Alvarez with the direction switches or Holly Holm is another one. Very aware of where they are in the cage at all times, and they'll go one way and then back the other to get the opponent stepping to where they thought they were going to go and create that space to escape out the other side. But the body shots again is another thing that you'd love to see against guys like Khabib and Usman and people like that, because body shots slow you down, chasing slows you down, all these things slow you down. And yeah, the body shots were a great shout, but Kron Gracie did an amazing job of taking them. So now everyone in your gym is going to be doing that ab control exercise. Who was his name? Arco, the guy who came up with the muscle control stuff and sold it. Where you contract some of your abdomen and then you contract the other bits of your abdomen, so it makes it go weird. Famous from the Choke movie, and Kron did it at the pre-fight open workout. Punch stats actually, several points they showed him, and they were pretty even. So, really just, Kron was doing like slappy punches in single collar tie clinches and things, and Cub was winging them from behind him as Kron was walking forward. Couple of guard pulls in this, and people were like, oh, garbage guard pulls, learn to take someone down. But I liked the guard pulls. He jumped for closed guard, inevitably fell because Cub Swanson's not going to get jumped closed guard on, and then tried to wrap the De La Hiva and up kick, and I love that. I love going for a guard pull and then up kicking if the opponent stays standing. Ryan Hall does it with his Imanari rolls. If he doesn't entangle the leg properly, he'll just kick up at their face from like upside down. Because as we saw in the previous fight, it's the most powerful this is what Lachlan Giles has been saying this week in his videos with Bernardo Faria. He's been talking about how he uses De La Hiva and things to set up his leg entanglements, and he doesn't like inside position, which is where it's easier to get your legs through. He likes positions where you've got your feet on the opponent, because that's like a leg press. That's the most powerful motion you have. Up kicks are basically the most powerful motion that you have as any human. Unless you build your arms and upper body to an enormous degree, you're always going to be more powerful doing a leg press. What you did see though was when Kron dropped on that like De La Riva, immediately Cub was turning away and kicking his ankle free, because you'll see this a lot of guys like Keenan Cornelius and again Lachlan Giles, but people who use no-gi De La Riva, really a lot of them now are focused on the hand that isn't on the ankle is behind the knee, to try and keep the opponent from turning the knee in, turning their back away and kicking the leg out, because the control on the ankle, especially no-gi, is so difficult to keep if the opponent just turns away and kicks out. Like I said, I mean, that's half of like Rodolfo Vieira's game in the gi. He just kicks his leg free and then ragdolls you with the Toreando passes. But I liked it, and the up kicks from the De La Riva work surprisingly well. There's a kind of unknown guy on the regionals. It hasn't really fought anyone good, but Gegard Mousasi, he very good with up kicks from like that De La Riva position, or with one foot on the hip. So good on Cub for breaking his losing streak. Good on Crone for taking a beating and keep moving forward. It was very strange that Crone wasn't really attempting that many takedowns. He was just trying to get clinches and stuff, which is fair enough, but I think you need other ideas if you're a grappler. And I don't want to harp on about Ryan Hall too much or Gary Tonin too much, but they are guys doing different things. It's like if you went out there and you were like, I have this great inside low kick, and you just, I was going to say you just try and use that and try and win fights that way, but that's what Weili Zhang does. But like if you just went out there and you were like inside low kick, and then if the opponent was checking that, you were like, oh, well, I don't know what to do. I've only got the inside low kick. That's kind of how I feel about guys who just have the level change takedown or just try and get double underhooks on the fence. I think you've got to have, if you're a grappler, you've got to have like leg entanglement entries. You've got to have maybe a weird Kani Basami attempt that you can do. You've got to be able to snap guys down from the clinch. Like Brian Ortega never takes anyone down, but snap down a lot of dudes. I think you need a full toolbox, and some of it is going to be more gimmicky than the other bits of it, but if you stick to the absolute basics and you're just like, I'm going to be the best at the basics, you're going to meet someone who's good enough at sprawling on a double leg along the, a double leg out in the open, or fighting for underhooks and using the fence when you try and double leg him along the fence. You've got to be, it's a thinking man's game, and you've got to have some other stuff in the tank, and Crone didn't, unfortunately. And then you main event, Michelle Waterson versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Glad to see Joanna Jędrzejczyk isn't washed. I mean, again, she's had a couple of difficult matchups lately with Valentina and Rose, because they both have that sort of sit back and draw you in style, and Jędrzejczyk isn't really as great going forward. She's much better when the opponent's coming to her and she's jabbing and cutting offline. But Michelle Waterson, kind of a sit-backy fighter, and Jędrzejczyk just outdid her on combinations. Couple of nice takedown attempts and back takes from Michelle Waterson. And this is something that I think I said in the pre-fight, but I think I say it every time she fights, actually. One of the things that's always impressed me about Waterson is that she is basically, well, she used to be an atomweight. She's a bit bigger now, but she's fighting bigger women, and she's still, a lot of her best work is with her takedowns and the weird arm bars she throws up from the ground. But, I made that joke this week about, she was doing that axe kick trick at the weigh-ins not the weigh-ins, the open workouts, where the guy had to take a step closer to her each time, and she'd throw this leg, swing the leg all the way up over his head and down without touching him. And I tweeted similar connection percentage to her real life, or her real fight kicks. And everyone found it hilarious, except this weird dude who is on every forum who has like a parasocial relationship with Michelle Waterson, and got really angry. He's like, Slack's always been a Waterson hater. Oh. But no, it was a joke, but she does miss a ton of kicks, because a lot of her stuff is what we call fucking meme kicks. And just throwing side kicks at nothing. And you saw it in this fight, like she'd throw a worthless side kick, and then Joanna Jędrzejczyk would throw like a low kick, come back with hands, and then finish with another low kick. The kicks were not landing for Michelle Waterson barely at all, to be honest. But, a brave performance, got her ass kicked, still came back to, take Jędrzejczyk's round back in, the fourth round. Was it fourth round? Third round? Can't remember. But, she was always game. She just wasn't stylistically equipped to beat Jędrzejczyk. Then what else went on? There was a Rising card, which halfway through I got angry watching, because you'll remember last week, I mean, did pretty well on predictions this week because my predictions were Kawajiri's going to fight Pitbull. Well, actually, that was a few weeks ago, and then they booked him to fight Pitbull, allegedly in a blind draw, but, this is just a fight to get Pitbull an easy knockout. And he did. Fought Pitbull, got a flying knee in the head, took a load of extra punishment for no reason, because Japan hates their legends. They use their names, they make sad video packages about them, and then they want to see them beaten half to death. So I was, at that point, I was like, fuck this event. And then, having Fabio Maldonado in the main event is another, what the fuck is... I think Risen's pretty much... We're winding down now. There's no... I'm going to say that about one later, but, I think the best days of Risen are done. We're not going to be next Pride if you're putting Fabio Maldonado in your co-main event. Main event, sorry. Co-main event was actually good. It was Kai Asakura versus Ulka Sasaki, and he broke his jaw within a couple of minutes. It was incredible. Kai Asakura and what's his name? Mikuru? I'm not going to Google it right now, but the other Asakura. The Asakura brothers and Kyoji Horiguchi are the best things about Rising. They're the reason I watch it. And they're not old names. They're dudes who are current and knocking people out. And knocking good fighters out too. But Rising, don't seem to give a shit about that. They want to do bullshit. They're putting all their eggs in Rampage versus Fedor, and it's going to work. Idiots will watch it, but there are only so many of those left. What else happened on that card? Seo Ham got the Hamdelay got the win that we all wanted her to. Well, she's just got not. The thing is, she went to the UFC as a strawweight, and again, she is an atomweight, and she just couldn't make it happen like Michelle Waterson could. So it's nice that she's actually got somewhere that she can be now at 49 kilos, which is teeny tiny. TKO'd Miyu Yamamoto, but then Miyu Yamamoto is 45 years old and took up fighting about 3 years ago. Rina Kubota beat an absolute can, because they don't know what to do with Rina Kubota. There's no, there's 4 fighters that they use in that class, and they want Rina to win, so they have to get a can. Johnny Case beat Roberto de Souza, and I said eyes on Roberto de Souza, so that was a surprise. And then, fuck all else worth writing home about that card. Just exploitative Japanese bullshit, the usual. Then you had 1 Century. I've only seen a few fights from this because it was between the two events there was about 24 hours of fights. But I watched. Everyone told me to watch Angela Lee versus Zhong Jingnang as soon as it happened. But I told you last week that'll be a good fight because their last fight was a good fight. And in fairness, it was a good fight. The problem was I did predict that Olivia Coste would be reffing both Lee matches, and one of them would get away. Well, I said both of them would get away with insane cheating. I haven't watched the Christian Lee match yet. I can almost guarantee he grabs the fence at some point. But yeah, Angela Lee suplexes Zhong Jingnan, and Olivia Coste watches it and allows it. If you don't know, one retroactively disqualified fighters for their for suplexing decided overnight that it was against the rules, and in that statement, Chatri said all suplexes, regardless of intent, if you intend to suplex someone, it's illegal. Doesn't matter if it lands on the back of their head. And, there's a great quote. It's I'm not going to pull it up now, but it's on the Body Lock article about it. The Body Lock is great at putting people on blast for this sort of stuff. But, Chatri put it out in a message a year and a half ago, maybe 2. Since then, since last night or whatever, he's deleted that message. So, just to be doubly clear that it's all fuckery. Do you know the best part about this? This rule is bullshit. The enforcement of the rules in Rising is bullshit. Sorry, 1 is bullshit. There was a ton of shady judging in Pride. Matt Hume was involved in all of that, as their rules coordinator or whatever it is, and judge. But if you say that, everyone goes, "You're character assassinating Matt Hume." And you're shut the fuck up. He's an amazing coach. I love Matt Hume as a coach and as an influence on martial arts. But he has been the guy behind some really fucking shady rule keeping and judging. So yeah, Chatri lost his shit over that. Dick tucked hard on his previous statement. And it's partly because the rules are not exactly clear in 1. They are, people were showing me their programs and stuff, and there's a 5 bullet point list of the rules and things like that. But then that's because there is no athletic commission, and they are deliberately as opaque as possible with their rules. When people are oh, show me Matt Hume fucking up some kind of decision or something like that. I can't, because they don't even show you they don't even show you how they get to the scores. The scores are done in the most, well, I said opaque, but opaque way possible. They don't announce scores. They just say who won, and they don't even say who scored for who won. So there's zero accountability. It's just the stupidest company on earth. But then if you saw these events, they had zero sponsors on the mats. Zero. Their only things on the cage mat were the 1 Century logo. And they're making no money from tickets. So, we might be coming to the end of this exciting age of one. This is the thing, like, I like that Eddie Alvarez can go over there and make 8 figures, allegedly. And I like that they're giving, like, Rod Tang versus Haggerty and stuff like that. I like that they're doing free fights, but they're also shady as fuck, and they're never going to turn a profit, ever. Like, they're 100 and probably 50 at this point, million in the hole. Their accounts are just like a sieve. You pour money into a sieve. It's a mess. And I believe Ong Lasheng became 3-division champion in the main event against Brandon Vera of day 2. How weird is that? Uriah Hall could be 3-division champion somewhere. Dope fight, though. I mean, Ong Lasheng can take a fucking shot. And Brandon Vera will try and elbow you in the head 8 times when he's hurt. The other story of the weekend was, I haven't watched the DJ fight yet because, frankly, I'm not paid enough to watch DJ fight. The rest of Team Lakay, whatever, seem to have forgotten how to grapple again. Kevin Bellion versus Bibiano Fernandes. Bibiano Fernandes has done the same thing in every fight with Kevin Bellion. He takes him down and lays in half guard and does nothing. Because if he does something, Kevin Bellion bridges and he loses him. So the first round of this was literally just Bibiano Fernandes laying on him in half guard. And then the second round, he managed to get his back and choke him. You're like, Bellion, what the fuck are you doing, mate? And then Honorio Benario lost by Darce choke in 50 seconds to Shinya Aoki. And we talked about Honorio Benario last week, but he sums up Team Lakay because he was on 5-fight winning streak. Then he was on a 5-fight losing streak. Then he was on a 5-fight winning streak. And now he's on a 3-fight losing streak. Just, what? Like, it makes no sense. But that's one, baby. That's what we say to that. Anyway, so fuck one, fuck Rising. Fuck the UFC for good measure, but especially fuck Rising. Right, let's do a question. Hello, Mr. Slack, long-time reader, but new to the podcast. I have been seeing the phrase styles make fights thrown around more and more with reference to MMA as of late, but no one I've come across seems to agree as to what a style is in MMA. The dialogue usually seems to devolve into a conversation about backgrounds of fighters, with little or no attention paid to how they use their background in the cage, or ring for that matter, as the nostalgic and willfully pedantic will no doubt point out. As such, I was curious to see how you define broad style / archetypes in the same vein as the swarmer, puncher, boxer puncher of the Sweet Science, or the similar Nia, kicker, puncher, and whatever a femur is supposed to be in Muay Thai. Thanks for all of the insights over the years. Looking forward to your 2 cents on this. Thanks. Regards, Francis. I don't really have like a set. I mean, Connor and Patrick used to talk about archetypes and stuff all the time, but I don't really go in for that. I mean, there's when they say styles make fights, I think everyone's style is an individual style. Like, you're going to have your own weird tendencies, like pulling your head back to evade most punches or things like that. And I think when we say styles make fights, we're considering how people's general habits match up against each other. If you're a go-forward style striker and the other guy's a go-forward style grappler, you're kind of playing into his hands. It's things like that. Or if you're Junior Dos Santos and you back yourself onto the fence as soon as anyone shows you anything, and you're fighting someone who really likes pushing people to the fence. When we say styles mean fights, I tend to mean like this guy's habits match up badly with that other guy's habits. It really isn't as simple as like a rock, paper, scissors sort of thing, especially in MMA. Because like, even if you believed that was the case in boxing, where you're like, a swarmer beats a classical boxer, but a boxer puncher beats a swarmer, but a infighter beats a boxer puncher or whatever. Even then, you're dealing with a stand-up situation where the ring position and the movement and the strikes thrown and your favourite strikes and usual defences make all the difference. But then if one guy has a wicked snap down that he hits from time to time, like Brian Ortega, suddenly it's all different, because, again, you are always going to fall into the clinch at some point. And this is kind of why people go back to the styles like grappler versus striker, or BJJ versus wrestling and things like that, because they can understand it. But then, even when you consider like BJJ versus wrestling, the best BJJ guys, or some of the best BJJ guys who've come to MMA, have been guys like Andre Galvao, who was almost exclusively a top player. So if he couldn't get guys down, he really struggled. Whereas if you have someone like Rafael Lovato or Damian Maia, who will, well, not so much Damian Maia because he's lost to every wrestler he's fought, but someone like Rafael Lovato, who will pull guard to come up on a single and things like that, it's a little bit different. Or, someone like Ryan Hall, who's definitely not a better wrestler than Gray Maynard, but still had Gray Maynard running from his, I was going to say takedown attempts, but leg entanglement attempts. It's the game's always changing, and if you get hung up on like trying to lock down people's styles, it can be very tricky. Which is why I've always stuck to the term habits. I just say, this are this guy's habits, these are this guy's habits. I think this habit plays badly into this habit. Habits, habits, habits. Cheers, Francis. Hi, Jack. You're quite good at podcasting. I'm a big fat dynamo, and as such, my BJJ game complies with all the stereotypes. I have a good pressure-based passing game, a heavy top game based around kimuras and arm triangles, and I get tired immediately. I'm also largely helpless from my back. What is a guard I should look into? Who are some hefty fellas whose games I could learn from? I've been working Z-guard and even turtle with some success, but I thought if I'm going to do BJJ, I should have a full guard in my arsenal, as that's seen as sort of a trademark of BJJ. Cheers from Eddie. Well, we just said, you can be an amazing top player and just not play the bottom much. Yeah, if you're doing, well, if you're playing BJJ, the seated butterfly guard is always an option because, like, it doesn't have a huge amount of options off it, but you're setting yourself up in a position where it's more difficult for the opponent to pass. If you sit up and your feet are in nice and close to you and your hands are out in front of you fighting, the other guy has to get you, well, most of the time will have to get you on your back before he can even start passing well, or engage you at least. And then, you've got the shin to shin. For listeners who don't know what the shin to shin is, it's where, you can look up the shin to shin, but it's good for pulling into single leg X and things like that. And single leg X and X and things like that, that are called guards. Deep half guard's another one, but they're not really guards. They are basically it's a hub for sweeps. The hard work is getting to the single leg X, whereas getting to shin or getting to seated butterfly position isn't really that much work at all. Z guard is dope. I love a bit of Z. I play a good amount of half butterfly guard nowadays because I watched the Danaher guys coming up using it, and no one was really talking about it back then. But it's just such a nice way to put yourself in a position where if the opponent pressures forwards, you might sweep them, and if they stay still, you might be able to drag yourself underneath and get a single leg X. I love single leg X, so that's me. But yeah, one of the basic rules of guard that no one really seems to talk about that much is that leg entanglements are sweeps. And if you watch like the Danaher Death Squad and people like that, all their entries to single leg X guard are entries that Marcelo Garcia used back in like the early noughties. Because Marcelo Garcia just used the single leg X guard to sweep. And then they were like, well, what if we used it to heel hook and stuff? Because Marcelo Garcia has like one important leg lock on his record, and that was against Rico Rodriguez. But it came the same way, reap the leg and go for the heel hook. But if you can learn to entangle the legs, firstly, you can get sweeps fairly easily, or you can pull people into 50-50, which is a nice way to slow down people who are better than you and lame them out. But also then, if you go no-gi and you want to move into leg attacks or deal with leg attacks, you know what you're doing a bit better. Alternatively, if you're a big lad, you can just use underhook half guard. If you're using Z, you'll probably already know that. I'm a big fan of Craig Jones's style, which, Craig Jones has put out numerous instructionals on like half guard and things like that now. But really, if you watch him go against these guys, and when he's picking up all these wins in like grappling super fights and things, a lot of his game is just from the Z guard. He shoots his top arm underneath the opponent's far armpit and his bottom arm underneath their far leg. And then he just like half inverts to get in on it, and then either sits back into like an X guard, a single leg X guard with the underhook, or he goes all the way over into like a knee bar attempt, and then does the tornado sweep over the top. It's really quite simple, but he does it to everyone. So those are all good options. I'd say if they stand up, sit up, and try and get shin to shin, and if they come down to their knees in half guard, as a lot of people do, if they get frustrated doing that, use the half guard that you already know. Cheers, Eddie. Right, I reckon that'll do us for today. I'll be back on Thursday with some stuff about the rather smaller events going on this weekend. Got some stuff coming in the week. Going to have another piece of, another big essay from the rewritten Finding the Art with the audio stuff on for the Patreon boys. Probably also going to do a preview article of Reyes versus Weidman. And I can't remember what the other good one on that card is that I liked. But we'll be doing that. And at some point this week, I'm probably going to be dropping a Filthy Casuals guide to Jorge Masvidal, because I think I'm probably going to be doing those just for like the pay-per-views now. And I'll leave that up until after the pay-per-view. So if you want to support the podcast and get extra shit, join the Patreon. If you want to send an email to the podcast, fightsgonbypodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to see what I'm up to at any time, including the pieces that I've done for Unibet, most recently done something about the World Boxing Super Series final between Taylor and Regis Prograis? Yeah. And the David Price Derek Chisora fight. Check out fightprimer.com. I'm your boy Jack Slack. Michelle Waterson's meme kicks bless.